Hi everyone. So I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Kelvin Green, whose some of the work I already covered on my channel. Kelvin is adventure designer and an illustrator mainly known from Lamentations of the Flame Princess game. He's really an awesome guy and talking to him was a great experience. I hope you will have at least half of the fun I had during this conversation. Now I will speak a short introduction in Polish and after that interview will start. Enjoy! Cześć wszystkim! Jak wspomniałem podczas ostatniego live'a, udało mi się umówić na pogaduchy z Kelvinem Greenem. Na kanale Małej Wsi mogliście już zobaczyć niektóre jego przygody, czyli The Seed oraz Midwinter. Kelvin oprócz pisania przygód zajmuje się również ilustrowaniem RPGowych produktów i znany jest przede wszystkim ze swojej współpracy z Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Rozmowa naprawdę bardzo mi się podobała. Była bardzo luźna i jak później się okazało, to Kelvin był tym bardziej zestresowanym. Mam nadzieję, że rozmowa przypadnie Wam do gustu. Trzymajcie się, bawcie się dobrze. Okay, so again, hello Kelvin. Maybe for the beginning, we can start with you introducing yourself, if that's okay for you.
Yeah. This is always very difficult talking about myself. I'm Kelvin Green. I'm 41, and I'm a games designer. So I've been working in the area for about 10 years. And sort of professionally for the last sort of 2 or 3 years. And I first started out doing little drawings, bits and pieces for people. And then I started writing things. People started liking what I was writing. And that's led to me doing what I'm doing now, which is writing and drawing full time. Which is quite good because it means people like my stuff, which is still crazy for me, but that's who I am. I live in England on the south coast, about an hour away from London, it's been a fun year because we've been in lockdown here for the whole thing, so I haven't really seen anyone for a year, but been working away in the background still. So
okay, so I will jump straight to the conversation. I am familiar mostly with two of your adventures, The Seed and Midwinter, mm-hmm. And I am right now also reading through Forgive Us. And is the Forgive Us the first adventure that you have published, or was there something earlier?
Forgive Us was the first proper published adventure. Yeah, I had I had put out a few one-page dungeons before then, but that was the first thing that someone had actually published properly.
Okay, so for you as an adventure and game designer, what's the creative process when you think of writing an adventure? Like, is there somewhere you want to start? Because from these adventures, what I can take from them, from those three that I'm familiar with, is that all of them are based on a location, on a specific location. Like in the Seed, we have this weird village. In Forgive Us, it's Norwich. In Midwinter, it's this Swedish village. Yes, Swedish village. So is this something of a pattern for you, or is this an accident? What's the creative process from your side?
Well, I think usually the first thing that comes to me is an idea. So it's a what if situation. So for Forgive Us, it was sort of what if the players broke into somewhere and let something out. For Midwinter, it was what if you had a sort of Wicker Man midsummer situation, but it was inverted somewhat. So that's how these usually start. I usually something pops in my head, and I think, oh, okay, what if this and this came together and something happened? In terms of the locations, um, it just sort of accidentally happens because I think it's easier or it's more effective as an adventure if you set up a location and a situation. So here is the place, here is what's happening in the place, and then you throw the players in, and then you let them make up the plot from that point. So there will be a story up until the point the players get involved, but it's basically a location and a situation. Um, so that's why they've all got very specific locations, um, and usually they're remote locations because that gives you the most scope for things to go wrong
Mhm.
and to cause mass devastation and destruction everywhere without causing too much trouble to the game world. Um, so that's where the location aspect comes from.
So is also that location aspect, is it also maybe pushed, or is it also a thing that a location is a good tool for published adventures because you can put it in the setting or something like that?
Yeah, especially for the Lamentations things because most of the adventures are set in sort of a version of the real world.
Mhm.
So that brings its own challenges because you have to do a lot of research if you go for somewhere well known. Um, but it also means you can ground it very much, and it's like, this is set in the real world, this is set in this kind of village, and everyone knows what a village is like. Everyone knows, what a tavern is, or what a village green is, or what a church is. So that it does take a lot of the work away as well because you can immediately base it somewhere. Um, so that makes it easier. It does also bring its own challenges. There's one which is going to be printed very soon, which is set in Paris, and this is an adventure which took a very long time to write, in part because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a backdrop, that we wanted Paris to feel like a real city, and that there was a lot of things going on, and that we used as much of the real city as possible. So that's coming up this year, and that was a big piece of work because we took a location and we really tried to make it feel alive.
Is it something that is that maybe makes you stressed a bit, that people because when you place an adventure in the real world, in our pseudo historical setting, then people might be very nitpicky for the history or something like that, and that's also something that is the biggest argument to not use the historical setting, at least when I'm talking to people. So are you a bit afraid when you are working with some historical events?
A little bit, yeah. For example, Midwinter, one reason why it's out in the middle of nowhere is because I don't know a lot about Sweden in 1630, so I didn't want to set it in the middle of a city and then people, because I know, there is a big gaming community in Sweden as well, and I didn't want them coming to me and saying, no, you've got that wrong. That's not right. That didn't happen. If you stick it in a village on a mountain, then there's less for them to say, no, that didn't happen. Um, but with Paris, it was, yeah, there was a lot of yeah, trepidation, a bit of fear to say that, I wanted to get the details right because while there are things in there which didn't happen and aren't quite accurate, and there's, for example, we've got taxis in there, we've got um, carriages which you pay for to travel around. They're
Mhm.
taxis. But it wasn't clear whether taxis existed in Paris in
Yeah.
1630, so it's like, well, okay, we're not sure, but during play tests, people enjoyed using the taxis. They had fun with them. So I thought we put it in. If people don't like it, then I hope that doesn't ruin the game for them, but people enjoyed it. And in the adventure text, I've said that I've written these may not have existed, but the players enjoyed them. So if you don't like them, take them out. If you do like them, leave them in. It's okay. No one's going to die if you've got a tactic in the game.
So still with the location adventures, so also a very distinguished thing that I think all of the three adventures that I know from you have in common is that all of them have very independent independent things going on there, and like this is not something that requires players' attention. They are being dropped into certain event, and then the reaction happens. So is this also something that you want to achieve when writing an adventure?
Very much so, yeah. I think it's very important to have things going on independent of the players. It means that it feels more alive. It means there's more for the GM to play with. The GM's not just reacting to what the players do. The GM's also got things that they can do and they can play with in the background, and they can move people around. And it makes things more interesting as well if you have lots of different factions going on. So, for example, in Forgive Us, you've got not only have you got the players and you've got the monsters, but you've also got the rival group that's in there at the same time. In The Seed, you've got lots of things going on. You've got the rival group, you've got the monsters, you've got the other people who are also in the village, and who are they? And I just think it makes it more interesting, and it gives the GM something to play with, because the GM is a player as well. And it makes it unpredictable, because it's not just do the players win. It's what happens when the players hit this obstacle, and what happens if the players hit this obstacle when someone else is hitting it at the same time. And it just makes things more unpredictable, and I think more interesting as a result.
Okay, so for you, because I assume you are not only a publisher but also a gamer. So, what is the difference between writing an adventure for yourself, for your home group that you are playing with on a daily or a weekly basis, and what's the difference with the adventure that should be published?
I think the main thing with the things that I run with my group is that they're a lot more sketchy. There's a lot less detail, because I tend to make a lot of things up at the table. So I will possibly just put a line which says, this person is not happy with the players, and that's all it'll be. But in a published thing, I'm going to have to write a bit more about who this person is, why they're not happy potentially, and all that kind of stuff, which can be a bit of it catches me out every time I write these up for publication, because when I test them, they're very much sketchy, like I've written them as this week's adventure. And then I think, oh, it's fine. When I type this up, it'll be fine. And then I get to it, and it's like, oh, actually, no. I've got to do a lot more detail here. This was a line on my notes, and now it's 3 pages in the book. And I don't know why. I've written, I think, something like 5 or 6 of these now, and every time I still surprise myself by doing that. I should have learned by now that there will be need more detail, but yeah, it always catches me out. One thing that I try not to do when I'm writing them is, when I'm playing the games, when I'm running a home game, I will tend to be quite wild, and crazy things will happen. And the natural response when you're writing for publication is to tone it down and to go, no, you need to be more sensible. But I think, especially with Lamentations, I really want to push it and just go wild, and have weird things happening and unexpected things, because that makes the adventure memorable. And yeah, I don't want to tone it down just because it's being published. It's like, throw the crazy things in. if James doesn't like them, then he'll take them out. But if he doesn't mind, they go through to publication. Some plays it at the table and they go, "That was mad. That was crazy," and then they'll remember it.
So, have you ever encountered a situation that maybe there was a miscommunication between like you as an adventure designer and a publisher and people who run the adventure? Maybe some situation that you thought about some that this means some specific thing, but people got it completely wrong than you were thinking. Was there any situation for you in history of your publishing like that?
The one that stands out is in Forgive Us. There's a section in there where the players have to use basically a magic word to open a door. And I play tested that. And every time I play tested it, the players got it straight away. The first time, the players didn't even think about the code word. They just said it and the door opened. So I thought, oh, great, that worked exactly as I thought. But then pretty much everyone who's run it since publication has said, oh, you could have done with more clues for the code word because my players didn't get it. And I thought, oh, okay, fair. It's a fair point. I could have put more of that in, but based on the playtest, everyone got it straight away. So it was like, oh, it works. So that is the danger of playtesting. Is that it can actually tell you things that aren't true as well as things that are true. But that's the main thing, I think, is the main sort of miscommunication between what I wrote and what people played. Most of the time, people tend to get it. I do remember one review of Midwinter where they got the concept. They absolutely understood what I was getting at with the concept, but then they thought, and basically Midwinter is a joke. It's a haha, look what we've done, we've inverted this idea. And the person who reviewed it got the joke and they said, but is the joke funny? I'm not sure it is. It's like, okay, I'll take that. 50-50, you got the joke, you didn't think it was funny. I'll take that. It's a 50% win there.
Yeah, and I was running Midwinter. Actually, it was 21st of December, and it was my friend's birthday. So we also ran this adventure. It was quite fun, and everyone understood that this is a joke. So
Perfect.
So we had fun, and I gotta say, I also encountered a lot of maybe not a lot, but some harsh reviews on the adventure. But I think that we had fun. We knew that this is a light adventure, which is a joke, and we were laughing a lot. So,
well, good. All I really want is for people to enjoy them. So if they do, that's fine. I'm happy with that. I don't need to win awards for them, but every time someone emails me or posts a review and says we enjoyed this, it was great fun. 4 hours of our day went by quickly because we had fun with this. That I'm happy with that.
Also, one thing I wanted to ask you is when you are writing an adventure and that is supposed to be published, what's the time period from the idea to the end product? Is because people often, and I find it myself because I am trying to write also some amateur products, and you want to have it now. You have the idea and you want to have it tomorrow. You want to have it in your hand, and you have to be very patient, I think. So, how it is with you?
Yeah, it can vary. Sometimes they are very, very quick. The Seed was a very quick one. I think it was maybe a month between when I was commissioned to do it and when I handed everything in and it was off for publication. That was super quick. The one that I was talking about earlier, set in Paris, that has taken years to do. We had the original idea. James gave me basically that started with James giving me a title, and he said, "Here's the title. Write an adventure based on that." I wrote an outline. He said, "No, that's rubbish. Go away and do something else." So I went away and did something else, and wrote it, play tested it, and the testing and the tweaking and the writing just took about, I think, possibly 2 years from start to publication. Um, and that I didn't hate the adventure by the time it was handed in, but I was ready for it to be off my desk because it was a case of I've worked with you enough now. Go away. But yeah, things like the seed, that was super quick. That was about a month. More Than Meets the Eye, which was a one that James took to Gen Con, I think, to publish. Um, that came about very quickly. I think that was about 2 or 3 weeks. And I think that one shows it is very much an episode rather than an adventure, but it was super quick. So sometimes, yeah, uh, it can be frustrating because you've had the idea, you've written it, and then it takes a long time to work through the gears. But sometimes it just comes out straight away, and it's super quick and super fun. Um, so it can vary. But yes, I definitely understand the frustration of having the idea and then having to wait for it to get there.
Okay, so also still sticking with the adventures, I wanted to ask because in your adventures we often can see some weird items, and I think that's one of the markers of the OSR overall, that people are usually not afraid to use, like you, a power armor in the seeds. So these kind of things stand out definitely. And what is your idea, your inspiration for introducing such things? And is it like, what's the weirdest thing I can put in some 16th, 17th century village, or what's the idea behind it?
I think the main thing is that it is a game at the end of the day, and your players want to play, and they want to play with things. So the basic idea is you give them a toy and you let them play with it and find out what it does. And the main inspiration for me for it is I'm not actually an OSR kind of person. I didn't play D. I played D&D twice, I think, up until about 2006. I was not a D&D player. I grew up on Shadowrun and Call of Cthulhu. But we also played loads of other games. And one game I remember was we played a one-shot of Paranoia. And I think this is a published adventure where the players basically are given a vehicle. It's like a car or a tank. And it's got something like 50 buttons. And all of the buttons do something different. And the GM has got a list of all the buttons. And you basically just get told, go out in this tank and work out how to use it. And I remember that this was 25 years ago, I think I played this, and I remember it because it was so much fun pushing the buttons. What does it do? Oh, my character's dead. Okay, that doesn't matter. Push another button, see what happens. And I think, to a lesser extent, that's what I like to put in the adventures, is at least one thing which the players can play with and figure out what it does, and that can throw the whole adventure off. I remember reading, I think it was a play report that someone had put, where there's a magic ring in Forgive Us, which turns you invisible, but also makes you fall asleep. And someone had taken that ring and they had taken it into another adventure that someone else had written, where if a character falls asleep, they explode. And of course, they'd combined them. They'd put this ring on this character's finger. The character had fallen asleep, turned invisible, had exploded, and then had killed like the King of Spain or something like that. And I remember reading that. I just thought, that's brilliant. When I wrote that, I had no idea that was going to happen. I had no idea you were going to take it to another adventure and do that to someone. But they had great fun. I had great fun reading it, and I think that's what the items are about. they don't have to kill people, they don't have to end the campaign, but as long as they do something unexpected and fun, I think that's the main thing. And that's why, a ring of invisibility, that's fun, but we've done that. A ring of invisibility that puts people to sleep, that creates an interesting thing to happen. So you've got someone who's invisible, but they're asleep. They're of no use as a thief at all. What do you do with that? So yeah, that's why I put them in, because they're fun to play with. They're a toy.
So the items should put you in some situation that you have never encountered before, like you said with the ring, puts you asleep, but makes you invisible, but also puts you asleep, and then you think, wow, that's new. So
yeah,
what do
it's
we
a
do
new
now?
situation. The players get to try and figure out that situation. It's a puzzle, and it's a toy for them to play with. And then, like in this play report I heard, they used it. They took it and used it somewhere else, and I think that's great because they got to play with it. So
Okay,
yeah.
so about the playtesting, because you have mentioned it. How do you playtest your adventures? Do you playtest it with some different groups? Do you have one group that you are playtesting your adventures with? How does it look like?
I usually playtest them with my home group, and they're very good at it from a certain perspective because they love to break games. So from a certain perspective, they're brilliant at playtesting because they will find the bits that don't work and they will chop at that bit until the whole thing falls apart. It can be quite demoralizing because you sit down to play an adventure with them and then an hour into it they've broken it and you
So
can't play
that's
anymore.
why your Paris adventure takes 2 years to complete.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So but they're very good at that, and it is good because it means they find the weaknesses and you can work on those weaknesses before publication. And then I do try to not only run it with them but also run it with a different group, which is usually random people online. We do have a game shop in town that I can use for playtesting, but I haven't done that yet. But yeah, it's usually at least once with my home group, and then at least once with someone online, and then I've got at least two perspectives on it, just to make sure that it works, and that there are no major issues. Yeah, so that's the situation. It doesn't go through rigorous tens and tens of playtests, but enough to find the major issues.
So you have said something interesting that you were not a D&D player. How did you run into Lamentations? How the cooperation started?
It's odd because I sort of fell into the OSR completely accidentally. Because as I say, no background in D&D. I think I played it twice, and I think it started with Fight On magazine, which isn't, I don't think is being published anymore, but sort of in the early or the mid 2010s it was coming out, and it was publishing a lot of the people who are big names in the OSR now, and they wanted art, they wanted pictures for the articles, and so I just volunteered to do that, and then I got published in a few of those. I almost got a cover once, but it was relegated to the back cover instead because it was too designy, and that got my name known, and then people started asking me to draw pictures for their adventures, and so that got my name known in actual published work, and then I think around that time I started doing the one-page dungeons because I thought, let's have some fun, let's write some things as well. And then the big break came with Forgive Us and the crowdfunding campaign that James did that published that, where he did, I can't remember how many it was, I think it was something like 12 adventures he crowdfunded at once. And any of them that funded he would publish, any that didn't would get given away so that the people who wrote them could publish them themselves or whatever. And there were some big names in there. There were people like Monty Cook, Vincent Baker, James Malachevsky was in there at first. So there's these big names in the scene at the time. And I wasn't involved at first, but then some people dropped out. Um, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, I've never asked him, but James came to me and he said, look, I've got some spaces in this now. People have dropped out. Would you write an adventure as part of this crowdfund campaign? And I said, okay, yeah, why not? Sounds like fun. I've never had anything published before. I've got an idea. And so I wrote Forgive Us. And bizarrely, it was, I think, 4 of them were funded, and Forgive Us was one of them. And then that's where it started. And from that point on, I was sort of in the scene. And then, yeah, that's led to where I am now.
So since then you are a constant member of Lamentations, I guess. Yes. So.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was. I didn't think I was ever going to do anything again for them because I understood that I'd sort of been picked up as a sort of a replacement because someone else had dropped out. But then James came back to me and he said, "Look, can you do some artwork for me for this book? I need someone to do this." Yeah, okay. And then came back a couple of months later. I need someone to draw this one and this and that. And then after a few of those, he then said, "Right, well, do you want to write something for me?" Okay, yep. Let's do that. And then it's now moved on to this relationship we have now, where basically I'm full-time Lamentations content developer. So what you'll see from Lamentations of the Flame Princess is you will see people coming in and doing a book, and you'll get all these how it was before, where you'll get 4, 5, 6 books a year from different people, but then also in between those books you should in theory see stuff from me as well, so basically to keep a constant supply of products coming out. So yeah, that's where we are now. So yeah, I've basically sort of gone from doing some pictures for a magazine just because I had nothing else to do at the time, to being a sort of a full-time games designer, which is a very strange turn of events, but it's good fun.
Yeah. So sticking with the illustration and your artwork, you are very known for the at least and that's how I consider it. You are able to depict very cruel situations in a very funny way. So there is always, I think that there is always a blink of an eye when reading or seeing the illustrations in your adventures. So I wanted to ask a thing, because you don't only you're not only illustrating your adventures but also other people's adventures. What's the difference when you are making an illustration for your product and someone else's product? Are there any differences at all?
Yeah, there are. It's sometimes easier to write to draw for other people because they will. What will usually happen is James will give me the text of an adventure, and he'll say, "Here are the spaces. Have a look through and draw whatever you want to draw to fill the spaces." And that's great. That's very liberating because I can read the adventure and I go, "That's a really fun image. Let's draw that and put that in." It's in a way more difficult when it's my own because I'm also thinking as sort of the designer and thinking what would make a really punchy image for this page, what would really sell this book with this image, and so that puts a bit more pressure on me, and it shouldn't do because I should really be treating them the same, but for some reason I put more pressure on myself with my own, and in anything that should be easier because they're both coming from the same brain. But um, yeah, for some reason it feels more difficult when I'm doing it for my own. Um, I've had more instances of James saying, "Why haven't you done a picture of this when it's my own book than I have when it's someone else's?" Which is, I don't understand why that happens, but yeah. He said, "Why haven't you drawn a picture of this monster? This monster is a great thing to draw. Why go away and draw that?" Whereas if I'd got someone else's book, I would have done that straight away. But so I don't know why, but there seems to be some barrier there that makes it more difficult for my own things.
So when you are making an art for someone else's book, then do you consult it with the author, or is it a completely independent process?
Um, yes, sometimes. I've been very lucky that most people have come to me and said, "I've really enjoyed the work you did. It's great. It looks great." And there hasn't been any sort of consultation. It's just they've handed the book in, they've seen the finished book, and they say it's great. Um, which sounds really big-headed, but people like to see their pictures drawn. It's not that I'm great. It's just they like to see their thoughts.
It's exciting.
It's exciting to see your thoughts in visual form. Um, so that sometimes that will happen, and there's no communication at all until at the end where they say, "Thanks for drawing this for us. That was great fun." But sometimes, especially if there's something that's unclear, or I've got a very clear image in my mind, but I'm not sure the author would agree, I will go to them and say, "Look, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And again, I don't think I've ever had someone say, "No, that doesn't work. Um, that's great. Go with it." I think it's possibly that most of the writers I work with are not also artists, and I think they just love the idea that someone has drawn what's in their head. And it's not necessarily me, it could be anyone. I think they just like the idea that it's there. Um, so I think from that perspective, they don't really come back with many changes. Um, a couple of people I've worked with have been um, quite detailed and strict with how they want things done, but that's very rare. Most people are just seem to be happy just to have any picture on the page. Um, so yeah, it's a very good working relationship because people seem to be happy most of the time.
Was there any adventure or a book that you have illustrated that was not yours that you were very excited to like when you read it and think, I want to draw it, I want to make illustration for it? Was there any specific product that made you very excited?
Thulian Echoes was one we did years ago that I remember reading it and thinking, yeah, this is great fun. I'm really looking forward to drawing this because there was so much strange things happening in it. Because you had this adventuring party of sort of ancient people, you had sort of Lovecraftian aliens, you had dinosaur skeletons, and I thought, this is great, this is brilliant. There was another one, Broodmother Sky Fortress. I didn't draw that, but at one stage, I was sort of in the wings because the original artist wasn't able to do it, and James was looking for another artist to do it. And he said, if I can't get the other artist, will you do this? And I looked at it, I thought, this is amazing, this is great, look at the ideas in this. And that would have been great fun to draw. And it came out and it looks amazing. And I think the people who did do it in the end did a great job, much better than I would have done anyway. Or much different anyway, I should say. but yeah, that would have been a fun one to have drawn as well.
So one question I wanted also to ask is to finish topic of the art. Your adventures sometimes have you make usually the interior art, not the cover art. Is this something I don't know? Maybe I should ask James about this. But is this an idea that Lamentations have a different artist for the cover, which is usually Yannick Bouchard, and then someone else is doing the art for the interior art, for like example in Midwinter?
Yeah, I think with Midwinter, originally I was going to do the cover art for that, but I had a discussion with James, and we realised that what we wanted to do was do a spoof of the poster for Midsummer. And to make that really work, we wanted to do it as a more sort of photorealistic painting, and that's much more something that Yannick is better at than I am. My style is much more cartoony, so yeah, we made that decision. Yeah, let's do that. Get him to do that, and I'll do the internal art. So that was the decision behind that. There is a bit of a house style with Lamentations, where most of the covers are of that sort of painted style,
but it also has this factor of surprise, because you are opening a book that has a certain cover and you think you expect a style, and then something else pops up. So
yeah,
that's the factor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with the cover of Midwinter, because I think it works better than it would have done if I'd done it. And the original idea I had for the cover was which I've got on the T-shirt here actually, was the stone.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would not have been as effective as a cover image. Maybe it would have been, maybe not. But I'm happy with the decision we made there.
But I have to say, for Midwinter, I have to thank you for the joke, the beginning joke, like 20 euros. So yeah. I almost spilled my coffee to my niece. So I had to protect the book, and so nice one.
I just can't help myself with that. I mean, the Lamentations is it's got this reputation as being this dark horror line, but I just can't help myself. I have to write jokes in.
Yeah, because like this adventure, that when I was reading it, I literally thought that this is trolling Lamentations.
I think it always surprises me as well. I've just finished writing one which hopefully will be out this summer as well, and it's just the tone of it's just jokes throughout. And I handed it in, and I thought, James is not going to like this. He's going to say, tone this down. This is ridiculous. And then he said, no, this is great. I really like this. I haven't got any changes to make. So, okay. So I think, from my perspective, if I buy an adventure and I read it to run for my group, I don't want it to be boring. I don't want to sit there and go, oh, this is so dull. So when I write one, I want the GM who's reading it at the other end to have fun reading it. I don't want them to think it's hard work to read just because they need to run a game this week. So that's why I put the jokes in. It's because
it works.
Yeah, it makes it memorable, and it makes it fun for the GM to read, because they've got enough work to do preparing it for the game. They don't want to have to troll through the book as well. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the joke. That's what it's there for.
So going back to the adventure design, there are two more questions that I wanted to ask you. First one is I wanted to dig a little bit more deep where you are taking your inspiration from. Is this because people usually have some of sources of inspiration? It's movies, books, pop culture, and something like that. So do you have any specific source of your ideas, or something you like to emulate in your adventures?
Yeah, I think. I mean,
Especially since your background is like you said, not usually so D&D. So is
well,
there?
yeah. When I first started out, I seemed to basically just be writing Call of Cthulhu adventures, but in the 1600s. Um, Forgive Us. Forgive Us looks very much like a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay adventure. It's very much designed to look like that.
I think you are also referring to Marienburg there in the opening words. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, um, yeah, it looks like it, but at heart, it's very much a Call of Cthulhu type adventure, and that sort of that sort of influence was very, very strong earlier on. Um, After that, I've sort of dialed back on that since, but most of my inspiration seems to come from uh, John Carpenter's films for some reason, just in my head all the time, and there's a fair bit of Lovecraft in there as well, but more sort of the icky, monstery type stuff rather than the other stuff in Lovecraft, and a lot of Doctor Who as well. Um, it just seems to be I've got these things going around in my head, and they just get mixed up, and then something comes out the other end. That's an adventure. The one I've just finished writing is it started out as a sort of twist on Superman. Um, I don't know if that will come out in the final adventure because it's been twisted and turned so much that I don't know if you'd recognize the Superman story, but that's how it started. It's like I thought, okay, what if we dropped Superman into the 1600s, but then added this twist and then added another twist and another twist, and it's almost unrecognizable now. But again, yeah, it's always these what ifs. So I grew up watching horror films and reading comics and watching Doctor Who, and I think all of that has basically come out in my writing.
So the second question, and I think it might be a bit of a wrap up. What you hate the most about writing an adventure? What's the most hated thing?
Ooh, I think for me, I'm not sure I hate it as much, but the bit I don't look forward to and the bit I worry about most is um, the combat statistics. Because I haven't come from a background of playing D&D every week, I don't have a great idea of how many hit dice is appropriate for something, or if an attack bonus is correct and things like that. So that's always the last thing I do. So I write the adventure, I write the situation, I write all the characters, then I come up with some stats that seem right, and then I play test it. And then if nothing breaks in the stats, those are the stats that go in. But otherwise, it's like I don't want to do stats. I don't like stats. I understand I have to do them because I'm writing for a published system, and the published system has stats. But it's the very last thing I do because I
You
don't.
just don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I just don't enjoy it because I don't know it, and I don't get a lot of joy out of the numbers. The numbers don't say anything to me. I'd much rather give them 3 personality traits and a picture that's memorable, and then do the numbers later. It's the bit I don't like. Yeah, I don't hate it, but if I could get someone else to do the numbers, I would.
Okay, so I maybe two last questions, quick ones. First one would be, what's your favorite published book? Is there any particular product that you are very very proud of, or your favorite one?
Of the ones I've done.
Yeah, yeah.
I like Forgive Us a lot. It was the first one, and um, it came out almost exactly like I imagined it would. It's a fun little book. It looks like I wanted it to do. It plays like I wanted it to do, and I like it a lot. The cover was great. That was James's idea.
It's really good, like really, really good.
I had a different cover in mind for that, but James said, "No, look, you've done this picture on the inside of this guy with the blood and written on the wall. That's the cover. Do that." And I'm okay, and it works. So I really like that. Um, the other one I very much enjoy, and I don't know if I can say the title just in case, but it's the fish one. And I like that because that just came together really nicely and is a really nice looking book. Um,
And also has a good joke on the back cover.
Again, the jokes, yeah, I couldn't help it. Bang, it had to go in. Um, but yeah, that one, just the way it came out, and it's a really nice book. That's one I would have bought. You know, the rest of them, if I'd seen them on the shelf, I would have picked them up, had a look through, and then maybe bought them. But that one is one I would have gone, wow, I like the look of that. I'm buying that. So I'm really proud of those two. Those are the ones I like the most of the stuff published so far. The Seed as well.
It looks great. It looks great.
That
It is a good
that was
adventure.
amazing. I had nothing to do with how it looked. Basically, I did the pictures and I did.
Did you choose the color, the pink one,
No,
or
no,
no?
that was all the guys at Games Omnivorous did that. I did the
Okay.
text and the pictures. I handed it in to them, and then they came back to me and said, "Look, this is what our designer has done. What do you think?" And I went, "That's that's amazing. That looks astonishing. That
Yeah,
would, if I
yeah.
had done that on my own, it would not have looked like that." So they have done an amazing job with that. Um, so I have to mention that because
I had to get my copy from US, but it was totally worth it. So really
oh,
good.
really? They didn't
Yeah,
have it in Europe. Wow.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I can't take credit for how that looks because they did all the hard work there, but it is amazing. Again, that's what I'm really proud of, even though
Okay, so
it's
maybe a bonus question because I'm really curious. Was it a challenge to because there is this Manifestus Omnivorous, and
not.
was it a challenge for you to adjust to this?
A little bit because when they first gave me the list and said you have to do this, 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 you can't do this, 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 um, I thought, oh, that's difficult. I don't know if I'll be able to work to that. But an idea came to me, and I made it work within all of those things, and it was quite easy. Um, and I sent it to them and I said, look, does this work for you? And they went, yeah, this is great. This ticks all the boxes. We would change this and this, um, but the changes they made they didn't change what I was wanting to do with it. They just made it more. So um, at first, the challenge did put me off, um, but it worked, and I found that it didn't actually hold me back. Um, so that it worked out very well with that one. That's part of the reason it came together very quickly. I had the initial idea, and then it didn't require a lot of work to get it to publishing form. So yeah, I mean they were really good editors there, and really good guidance. So it worked really well.
Okay, so last question is, except from yours, what's your favorite Lamentations cover? I was asking James the same question. I'm wondering if you will answer something similar.
Ooh, my favorite cover.
Yeah,
Hmm. Um, Apart from my
but
what?
yeah, but you cannot pick yours. So
Okay, I'm gonna have a quick look at the store just to see what they've got on there, because I want to, because I know what my favorite book probably is. Um, but it doesn't have my favorite cover. So let me think. The most recent one that I like a lot is the anthology, Adventure Anthology Death. It's a very simple cover. It's just a skull, but it's in that sort of blue and pink, which is that sort of 1980s horror movie colors. And I think that's a great cover. Very simple. Not very exciting, but I think that's a really good one. Um, and I also like, I'm never going to be able to say it because it's in Latin, but Fermentum Nigrum de Sepulvit, I think. But it's the recent one about the Belgian beer. Um, that's a very striking cover as well. Um, so I think those are probably my favourites in
So
terms of.
what's your favorite book then?
My favourite book is, it's an unusual one because no one ever mentions it. But my favourite book that they've published is Kelong or Quelong. I don't know how it's pronounced, but I really liked it.
Maybe it's because of your Call of Cthulhu background.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it's just a really interesting book. It's nothing like anything else that Lamentations has published.
Yeah, it's really different. That's true.
And
Yeah.
it feels like I've never actually managed to get it to the table to play it, which is a shame because it feels like it would be a great fun to play in. It's this little mini setting, and you've got all of this stuff going on. And I think it's a really interesting, fun-looking book, and I'd love to play it. And so I think that's probably my favourite. I know I'm supposed to say Death Frost Doom because that's and
Yeah,
Death Frost
that's
Doom.
the religion. That's the religion.
Yeah, Death Frost Doom is really, really good. I think it's an excellent adventure. But Kelong is my favourite. I think because it just seems like such a fun and different place to play in.
Okay, so to wrap it up, at the end I just wanted to ask where can people follow your work, where we can find you, or what except from Lamentations, if there are places where we can look for your work.
Yeah, most of the stuff I will I'll sort of put out will be either on my blog, which is just kelvingreen.blogspot.com. Or art I will put on Instagram or Twitter, and I'm the Kelvin Green on Twitter and the Kelvin Green on Instagram as well. So if you want to see pictures, those will be on Twitter or Instagram, and then anything else will get published to the blog. No one ever reads the blog, so
You need to have a YouTube channel. People like
yeah,
to hear things. They
I
don't
think
want
that's
to
what I
read
need to do. There's more stuff about me on YouTube than there is from me. There are people playing my adventures on YouTube, but I'm not on YouTube. So yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah. So that's the start. That's the start.
Yes.
Okay, Kelvin. Then thank you very much for this conversation, and I think we can finish the recording at least for now.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.